Welcome to our podcast, Stepping into Shakespeare. It's a podcast journey with the Bard. In this podcast, we're talking about the actor's approach to Shakespeare's Hamlet. I'm Therese, a Swiss actress based in the UK.
And I'm Lynn Dawson, a British actress based in LA. The purpose of this podcast is to document our rehearsal process with reading Hamlet.
And today we're talking with Frank Reeves about his experience of reading Hamlet. Frank has an incredible career as an actor. In his younger years, he worked on Broadway and various off-Broadway shows in New York. He was first invited into the Actors Studio by Lee Strasberg and is now a lifetime member of the Actors Studio. From here, he studied with many of the members, including the great Stella Adler.
He's also a talented musician who's made his own music videos and toured with his own band. He's worked as a principal actor in numerous feature films, as well as shorts. He's also worked as a writer, director, and producer, and has had TV appearances, and is also working as an acting coach. So welcome, Frank.
Welcome, Frank.
Thank you, ladies. It was so well done. I don't think I could be introduced by anybody any better than what you just did. That was fabulous. All my training was in New York.
Yeah.
I studied with some of the best acting teachers in the world, a lot of them from the Actors Studio. And so it was really, it's extraordinary. You know, it's a great place to train. And I would say to any new actor or any actor, the training is incredibly important because a lot of people view the industry as, oh, I want to be famous, right? Yeah. And, what do I have to do? Okay, I'll just take a cold reading class and then I should be okay. And you're not going to be okay. You really have to, and I was talking to Sarah about this yesterday, you really have to get up in front of people. There's no way around it. The more you get up in front of people, the first time you ever get up in front of people in a class, it's a little scary for anybody that's new. But the second time, it's easier. Third time, it's easier. Fourth time, before you know it, you learn how to eliminate anybody that's watching you. Yeah. And it fills you with confidence.
I love, Frank, some of your stories that you've told me over the years of all the people you've met in New York and all the sort of, you have a lot of wisdom and gems from your career.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I want to ask you, Frank, what was your experience with Lee Strasberg?
I was working on Broadway, and I always wanted to be a member of the Actors Studio. And I mean, all the greats come from the studio: Pacino, De Niro, and these are Marlon Brando. These are the people that I admired and followed. I wrote a letter to Lee in a beautiful parchment paper. I made sure the paper looked really nice. I spent some money on it, and I wrote to the Honorable Lee Strasberg. And of course, the fact that I was working on Broadway, it was easy in terms of being a professional observer, because that's what that means. That means that you're currently working in the profession and in something big. You're doing something, whatever it is. So I got a phone call saying that Lee has allowed me to come in and be a professional observer. So I come in the first day, and the first day Lee is moderating. And there's this wonderful scene on the stage with this a woman, and she's pregnant. And they do the scene, and he stops the scene. When the scene is over, and he starts to talk to her, and he says, when you took it, and this is how specific they get. He said, when you took that drink and you were talking to him, you have to really feel the drink come down and really just go let it come down and really know where it is, because it's hitting the baby. You want to, and all those things. And it's just an awareness kind of a thing, but it was so specific. I was taken aback, and I was, wow, this is amazing, Wow.
And did you, in your years of formation, did you work on Shakespeare already, or was that later?
No, that was later.
That was later.
Let me give you my introduction into where I first found out about my love for Shakespeare. Yes. Let's put it that way. There's a guy by the name of Joseph Papp in New York. He owns the Public Theater. He's world famous. He's gone now, but what he used to do, but the Public Theater is still there. That's where a lot of shows are created, and then they go to Broadway, from there, a lot of them. Joseph Papp was famous for doing crazy kind of casting. He just did they called it non-traditional casting, and I love that. And Joseph Papp used to do in the summertime free Shakespeare shows. I saw they had Hamlet, and it was a girl playing Hamlet, and the girl spoke with a very thick accent.
Okay.
She was Puerto Rican. I didn't know what I was watching.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away by it. I was like, oh my God. Like, what is this? You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, and they were so good too. And I think the whole non-traditional thing just made them go in a whole different area where they were, you know, and I talk to Sarah about this all the time about Shakespeare. There are people who do Shakespeare and it just sounds like words.
Yes.
It just sounds like words. And it's so rare when you can find an actor who can do Shakespeare and you understand what they're saying. The actor actually connects to things like personal things. And you see the actor seeing images and you see the actor having thoughts and you go, that's not the Shakespeare I'm used to seeing with these other guys. You know, what is that? And to me, that was what I wanted. Because of the actor studio. You know, it's really about the actor studio does the same thing with regular acting, right?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who do a regular acting that when you look at actor studio members, there's something different about what they do. There's something different. There's something that you believe it more. The actors are really emotionally involved. They are really living moment to moment. I wasn't ready when I was made a professional observer, even though I was working on Broadway. I wasn't ready for the actor studio.
Okay, wow.
You know, because I was doing,
and that's a lot of inner work, I guess they do. You get really personal to your personal life. You do a lot of inner work.
Yeah, but you just said the right word, personal. It's really about being personal.
Yeah.
You know, it really is.
And that can become scary sometimes. That can become
of course,
overwhelming or something.
If you get emotional in your life, there was a famous teacher at the actor studio by the name of Shelley Winters. And she won 3 Academy Awards, Shelley. So she was something else. But Shelley used to say, no matter what happens to you in your life emotionally, let it happen. And then she used to say, and then, you know, most human beings will say, why is this happening to me? But then in the back of your mind, you go, I could use that in my acting.
It's a real experience.
It's you know, even though I hate this moment and he just left with another girl and he tore my heart or whatever's going on, right? And you're crying like baby, you go, okay, this is terrible. But you know what? I could use this in my acting.
Exactly.
And she told us this wonderful story. I'll tell you real quick. I won't make it too long. She told us this wonderful story with this other actor by the name of Tony Franciosa. He's another famous actor. Now we're talking about famous actors in the 1950s. That's when they had their day. That's when they won the Academy Awards and all this. That's why they're teaching now because they're older, right? So she was dating Tony Franciosa. And she found out that he was with another girl. And she said, one day I saw them together and I was in my car and I swear to God, I almost ran them over. She said, I was driving and they're going, and they're running. And she said, if there wasn't for a brick wall that was there, that they jumped over, she probably would have gotten.
Would have done.
She said, thank God for the brick wall because where her mind was at the time.
Wow. And that segues a little bit into just my mind, into Othello, right? Because Othello is such a play with uncontrollable jealousy and so
there's strong emotions.
Yes, that's another character which I absolutely love. And it's interesting that you say that, Sarah, because the key to Othello is jealousy. That's the key. And so going back to what we were just talking about emotions, because I could say to myself, Frank, man, I hate being jealous, and I do. And I don't like it. It's so destructive. But I could use that.
Exactly.
In Othello. And so when I've approached Othello, I have to go back to those times when I was extremely jealous of something, right?
Yeah.
And it's horrible to get it again. But as an actor, it's wonderful to, as an actor, you go, I have to call upon my memories. I have to call upon this stuff to get it. And it's just wonderful. Now I'll give you another quick instance about what's great about the work that we do, the sensory work and all that that creates this. My sister just passed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so sorry, Frank.
Really?
Thank you. No, it's very sweet. But what happened, because of sensory, this killed me. And I did it yesterday for like preparation for what we were doing. I did my sister. I created my sister. And what was so beautiful was that it was like visiting her again.
Wow.
It was like visiting her one more time. It was just, I thought, how amazing is this work that we do at the studio? Because who else can possibly do this?
Yeah.
I mean, really do it.
Yeah.
I just was like hugging her. It was just, it was beautiful. But you see, here's the thing. Many times, like when I would do sensory class, many times when I do scenes at the studio, I do the same thing, but with other people. And I use them for the scene. I'll hug them. I'll do everything. And I get them. What it does, it gets you emotionally riled up. You get very, very personal. Then you cover for the scene. And I'll explain cover very, very quickly so it's clear. Let's use an analogy, right? Let's say you just had an argument with a boyfriend and he left you in tears. Maybe he broke up with you. Your mother shows up at the door and you're like, oh man, I can't let my mother see me like this, right? You cover. You open the door. Hi, Ma. How's it going? You do your best to cover, right? Or what you're basically doing is you're not letting her know that something you were crying. Yeah. You do the same thing in the scene.
Yeah.
You get emotionally involved and then you cover and then you start the scene. Yeah. And then what happens, let's go back to the analogy of mom. And then what happens is when mom comes in and you're talking, and then what happens is mom and you are having a regular conversation and then your mom says, so what's going on with you and your boyfriend? Tell me what's been in, and you say,
and then you cry.
And then you say, okay, Mom, what happened? Then she gave you a trigger. So the same thing happens in a scene. When you work in a scene, somebody is going to give you that trigger.
And I wanted to ask you, Frank, this is a big question, but what is your experience working on Hamlet?
Okay, right. Okay. So we started off with that. And then I started to, I started off, in all the workshops that I was doing. I don't know why, but I think I don't know why. I don't know why I had this interest, but I think I always wanted to do hard material. Difficult material, because I felt that after being in the actor studio, I saw, what it took. And they brought in some really difficult material. Not too many people did Shakespeare. Like I said, I saw, what's his name do it, but not too many. But there was something about it that I started bringing in material in all my workshops. And I would do Julius Caesar, and I would do something else, and I would do this, and then I would start off with, I did Horatio, the speech about 2 nights together, these gentlemen, that kind of thing. And I've always been, and I don't know where I got this from, but I've always been an actor who is constantly working on monologues. Constantly. I do it every day, basically, every day. And I recommend it to all actors. And it's easier said than done because actors hate monologues. Yeah. And they shouldn't. They really have to learn to find a way to love them. Find a way. Yeah. And in a way, it's sort of like meeting someone. You got to find a way to love a monologue. And I think actors hate them because they are difficult. But that's the challenge.
That's right.
And in this play, in Hamlet, you have it's the monologue role, isn't it?
So because of all the years of just doing monologue, I don't look at it as a daunting task.
Before you said the key to Othello is this emotion of jealousy.
Yeah, it is jealousy.
There is a key emotion which helped you to play Hamlet.
It's interesting. Jealousy is very important here too.
Yeah.
It is very important here too, for a lot of reasons. That's not the main thing with Hamlet, but but I think it's very important because he's jealous. I think I'm jealous that I love my mother so much. And the fact that she went with my uncle just like that is like, it's not that I'm jealous that she did that, but I guess in a way I am. And I think that goes sort of into the whole incestuous theme that a lot of people talked about with Hamlet and Gertrude. But I just think, after reading it, it just fits for some reason. But I think it's more. I think it's relationship with your mom. It's heartache. When people do things. Yeah, it's heartache.
That's what it is, the pain of loss as well.
Yeah, it definitely. But when people, when it's love, when I say relationships, I mean with your father. It's you're grieving. If you've ever grieved about anybody in your family, then you know what it's like to lose a parent. I really think Hamlet. You see, there's a line that I learned. I don't know where I learned it from, but I always teach it, and whenever I teach a cold reading class. And this is me in a love relationship. I want one thing. She wants something else. What actions do I take to get what I want? Right? I put it all together in one sentence. And it's really about the love of your parent and the loss of it. And I think the history between them, there was so much love, that he was such a good dad to me, that when I find out that this happened, and I don't know anything about it until I come back from college, right? I'm blown away and devastated by that, because someone that I really love is gone, and no one sent me a message. And then I come back and my mother's married to someone else, not just someone else, but my uncle. What the hell is that? I think that is something. First, you have the grieving, and then you have that compounded.
The betrayal
on top
on it. Yeah.
The betrayal.
It felt like a betrayal.
No, it is a betrayal.
Yeah.
It is exactly a betrayal. And so you got to think about that. And you got to think about, like, you look at a play like that and you go, okay, do I love my father? Man, do I love my father. Was he a great father? Man, I could think of all the different stories. And now this is Hamlet thinking of those stories. That's now my background, right? So, and I think of how much I love him, and I think how much I love my mother. And then I think, what if my mother married someone else? Man, I would be a little weary, especially if the guy, because I don't know who he is, right? But the fact that she did it so quickly, it is a betrayal.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, marry my uncle. It's gross. It's I don't know. I think so many problems with it, but you've got to go back to your life, and you've got to fill in the blanks with your life. Your uncle. So I see my uncle. I see my dad. Right. So that's these are all. This is exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, and if for any reason you're not happy with your parents in real life, I'm sorry, but you what else can you do? You've got to go. You've got to go where no man has gone before. If you wanna do it right. And don't be fooled, because we're talking about some of the greatest actors in the world work this way. Like Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro. I mean, they all work this way. Meryl Streep. Yeah. They all work this way. That's how it works. So you got to use whatever tools you've learned to make this thing come alive.
And I think that's what we did yesterday. Like, for me, it felt very alive. Like, I felt like the scenes were really like...
Yeah. I mean, we have to remember, because I was looking at it last night, and I was unhappy with a couple of things that I'm talking about me. I was unhappy with a couple of things that I did. And I was thinking, Frank, you got to remember, this is the first reading. In the context of things, like when you do a play, right? Or you're doing a scene with somebody. Let's say you're going to do a scene with the actor studio. The first thing you do is you do all your homework, you do all your stuff at home, and blah, 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 blah. You work it out at home. You do everything, as much as you can, sensory work. You figure out everything. You take out the toolbox, you figure out everything you need, right? And then you get together with your partner. And what I like to do is I love to do improvisations. A lot of times I'll say, let's not even do any of that. Let's go straight into an improvisation. Yeah. I like to do the scene immediately, but improvising. And what happens is an extraordinary thing. All the work that you did at home, one would think, you're not there yet in terms of you haven't memorized anything, right? But an extraordinary thing happens in the improv. It's like you remember almost everything in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that you remember pretty much everything. Now, improvising Shakespeare, because there are some people who say, oh, you can't improvise Shakespeare. I am totally against that. I am totally against someone saying that. You can do anything you want to do if it helps you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, like, let's take the scene with Hamlet and his mother, right? I want to tell her, right? I want to prove to her and show her and convince her that this guy that she is with is the freaking devil. And she cannot be with him anymore, right? That's what I wanted. So let's say we do an improvisation, and let's say she's calling me because she wants to find out what the hell are you doing? You just what are you doing this? You know what's going, you know? And then we have this big argument, right?
And it's a long argument in the play yesterday. It was like 30 minutes, that scene. It's a long scene.
Is it 30 minutes, really?
It's quite long. Yeah, I looked at it. I was like, wow, that was so long. But when you're in the moment, time doesn't exist.
Yeah. I'm making my case, right? I'm trying to convince her. So you improvise. Let's say I improvise that scene with the girl, whoever it is. We got a real sense of the scene now. It's alive. And what do we use? Personal stuff only.
Yes.
Ourselves, our instruments, our thoughts, our memories, which is exactly where you need to be, but you're doing it immediately. So you start off with that. Then you start going back to the text. Then you go back to an improv. Then you go to the text. And you go back and forth until they become one. Because the words, especially for first reading, the words sometimes can trip you up. And it tripped me up. And I was upset with myself for being tripped up. That takes another rehearsal of just going over the words.
Yeah.
And really articulating a words, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
2 nights together had these gentlemen, Marcellus. Okay, Frank, 2 nights together had these gentlemen, Marcellus, and 2 nights together had the. I will do that. I will articulate the words so that they can. Then they start to flow, because some of them you have to group and you have to. And some of the things that I did yesterday that I messed up on, I didn't do that. And that's why I was having that hard time, because I never got a chance to do that there.
And sometimes he has these sentences that have like tongue twisters in them. Like there's one yesterday, it was like PPP words, and it was like, and it will trip you up. You're like,
And you have to become a little bit slower, I think. For me, especially, I have to slow down, and then I have to.
I think that's a good thing. Yeah. No, that's a good thing. That's never a bad thing to slow down, because most actors, and I say 99.9% of actors, rush. Yeah. That's always the biggest. I studied with so many different teachers, even at the actor studio and all of that. The biggest problem I've seen in every place is rushing. That's the number one problem. Here's the thing. If you find things to work on in a scene, right, it will slow you down. Like, let's say, for instance, I'm doing the scene and I decide I'm watching a waterfall. Let's say it's not even in the scene, but Frank chooses that's what I'm working on. I have to see the water. I have to hear it. I have to see people coming around. I have to smell the smells, right? I have to sort of taste the mist that's going in, that's sprinkling on me, that I can feel it, right? Those kind of things. So when I'm working on all those different things, I'm working on so many things, I don't have time to be nervous.
That's true.
But actors who come on and they're frightened and they're nervous because they ain't working on shit. They don't have this. They're not. You gotta keep yourself so freaking occupied and living in that. But it can't be occupied that has nothing to do with it.
You can't just be like,
it has
no, but I know
I'm at the beach.
Exactly. The beach is a great. I do that a lot in sensory classes. I create a beach. That's a great thing to create. I don't know. A lot of actors find it hard, and it is hard in the beginning. But here's the thing. Everything is hard when you don't know it. So you've got to learn it. And once you learn it, it's not hard anymore.
Yeah. And what do you think did Hamlet bring new to your experience? I mean, you have so many experience of playing Shakespeare, but you kind of manage to approach it every time in a way that it is something new for yourself, or that you learn something new.
I think this is a play this reminds me of Al Pacino, and I'll tell you why. And I keep mentioning Al because Al's the president of the Actors Studio, right? Al invited us to see him in a play called The Father, which is by Strindberg. It's a classical play. And he had been working on it, he told us, for 20 years at the time. And that was over 10 years ago. So it's now 30 years, right? So this gives you an example. Hamlet, to me, is that kind of play. Hamlet is the kind of play that I can do forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I will always learn something. You know, I just, like I said, I was looking at it last night and I was going, oh my God, I like that part. Oh man, you know, I'm going to work on that monologue even more. And this is what I'm talking about. You don't just do a first reading and that's the end of it, man. No, this goes on, man. I could take some of those monologues and work on them forever for the rest of my life, you know, and that's what it is. It's the juicy, beautiful things. Acting's the one thing Lee Strasberg used to say, in order to be a good actor, to be a great actor, it takes 20 years. And I remember when I first heard him say that, I went, because I didn't have 20 years. You know, when I first heard him say that, I went, I was through you 20 years. But he's right. Yeah. He's right. To be a great actor takes about 20 years, man. Because, and the key, again, is, and I want to emphasize this to anybody listening who especially wants to get into acting, is getting up in front of people. The more you get up in front of people, the stronger your instrument becomes, the more confident you become, because you start to get, the audience doesn't mean anything to you anymore, because you learn how to eliminate them, because you're getting up there and you're using your tools, right, all the time. And then the people come up to you afterwards, and you know, even privately, you know, if they come to you and they say, man, that was fucking great, or whatever, you know, and that, when you walk home, is always the greatest day of your life, you know, because you're like, oh man, what a great day, I love it, you know. And the next time you do a scene, you went up just a little bit notch in your confidence because of that. So
it's fascinating. And do you have like this is going to be hard to ask you because you did Hamlet, but do you have a favorite line in the play or anything that stuck out to you as being especially poignant?
I think the best line for me in Hamlet, and I'll tell you why this is the best line, because it deals with what we're talking about in acting and being personal. To thine own self be true. To thy own self be true. What we're talking about in acting, right? Everything be true. But also, really, to yourself. When you're not acting, be true to yourself. When you're making decisions, you know, if people are saying, look, come with us, and you really don't want to go, you know, with people, and they go on and they try to, you know, convince you against your wishes, and then you listen, and then you hear that line, to thy own self be true, and you go, no, I'm not going.
Oh, great. Frank, it was fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much.
It was so fun. Oh my gosh.
It was very a rich conversation, and we went emotions. I loved it.
In our next episode, we will talk about the characters of Horatio, Claudius, and Rosencrantz, played by Andy Daverley.